Laura, thank you for joining us. I'm so excited to have you here.
Thank you so much for the invitation. And yeah, I'm excited because I usually don't talk about these things, they're not too welcome on other platforms.
Oh, how interesting. So, well, let's start right out the gate with, could you share one of the most spooky, ghosty experiences that you've ever experienced?
I have one, I have a number of them, but one of the spookiest ones, when I had just decided to, okay, I'm embracing being a witch, I'm embracing, I'm coming out of the proverbial broom closet and all of that. Um, I started having these experiences at night. When you're in between, you're not deep asleep, but you're not awake. And it was really horrible because I am laying down, and kind of like the sleep paralysis demon thing.
Yes.
And it was a witch, and she was but she was like the archetypical, right? Green nose, the whole shebang, big hat. And she was hovering right above me. And she was looking at me in the eyes, and she was hovering like she was floating. And I couldn't move, and I couldn't speak, and I couldn't do anything. And and she said to me, "Oh, are you really a witch? Are you sure you're really a witch?" And I was like, I remember that I was trying to speak, and I started coughing. And again, it's this state where you're not awake, where you're not sleeping. And I started pulling stuff out of my mouth. And it was like, and I know people are going to get grossed out, but kind of like literally what you pull out of your shower drain, the hair, the water, the soap, all of that was coming out of my mouth. And it was like the clown, right? Like it wasn't ending. And then I finally was able to breathe, right? So that happened in a dream-like state. So of course the next couple of days I'm a little nervous, because like that's a horrible dream. And coming from a Mexican Catholic background, and I do Catholic because it's very infused with indigenous beliefs and pagan traditions. But the fear is so ingrained on our psyche that I was navigating on fear for a few moments, for a few days. And then things started happening around my bedroom, like things will fall, uh like a picture frame will just fall, and one of those like tripod things, like if somebody push it. And I will see her, you know coming by, like between my bedroom and the living room and the kitchen. There's like a little hallway, and I will
Yes.
see her pass between the kitchen and the bedroom. And again, I was very new to embracing this publicly. Like I've just told my mom, like I don't consider myself Catholic anymore. And um my husband has always been very okay with me being, just a weirdo. But it was me coming out very publicly.
Yes.
And I just keep looking at her. And it happened a couple of times. And then I have this dream again, that again, like in a dream state in between, where I'm at a sense, like an old timey house, women, kind of like southern look, all United States seance happening, like we see in the movies.
Yes.
And the mirrors were covered with lace. All the mirrors were covered with lace. And I'm sitting there with this woman doing the seance. and they're trying to call the spirit, and they're trying to call the spirit, and I assume that I'm sitting there with them calling on the spirit, but then I find myself floating on the room, and I move the lace on the mirror, and there's no reflection. And so I'm like, oh, I'm the spirit. So it was like other witches calling me, but out of my body. And so that was extremely, that was more scary than the hovering witch. And again, it's not a dream, but it's not awake. It's that in between. And that did it. That the thing with the lace, I was very, very angry because I'm like, how dare you pull me out of my body? Like, who do you think you are? And some other swearing words that I don't know if I can say here. And so what I did is um, I created a circle here at home. At that time, I was practicing very, very like elemental Wicca, right?
Mhm.
So I created an altar and I put all the elements and I called on the quarters and I did the whole, 3 steps to the left, to the right, the whole like very um, ritualistic. And I just told her, just to answer your question, yes, I'm a witch and you're not welcome here. And unless you have information that you want to share and you want to be super clear and not spooky, you need to get the bleep out of my house. And you need to get the bleep out of my dreams
Yes.
and just get the heck out of here. And I could feel her passing through and out the window. So that was really scary. That was really scary.
I literally have had the exact same experience. To the point of the first story, that the first part of that, I had been doing, it was the summer where I had been doing intense yoga, intense pranayama. I was still doing my regular tarot and magical work, and I love how you just described it. Was as it, first of all, you talking about the in between state where you're not awake, but you're not asleep, and you're cognizant of what's happening, yet you can't move, with that sleep paralysis, and you're cognizant of an energy. And the way you just described it, was what came out of your throat was like what you pull out of your shower drain, that clumps of hair and mold. That is exactly it. It is the most. I'm getting sick to my stomach just thinking about it now. I'm wow. Thank you. I'm just usually I see other people when I do ghost stories by the fire, the live events. People feel really happy because they've had similar experiences, but you're the first person who's described exactly what I went through as well. And there was something there that I don't know if it was. I took it to mean that I was being cleansed of darkness. What do you think of that black sludge that came out of your esophagus, essentially?
First of all, that the feeling is very real, right? Um, you can literally feeling it pulling out of your esophagus, right? Because you can breathe. It's like choking you at the same time.
Mhm.
And like most humans, I'm disgusted to clean the drain on the shower, right? But
Yeah.
you have to do it. It's part of the maintenance of your living quarters. But even though I have lived a magical life my whole life, I'm very skeptical. And I really like to rationalize almost everything that goes on. And so, in talking to my magical partner, friend, colleague, Christian Ortiz, we were both talking about the importance of, particularly for me, well, for humans, right? Your windpipe, the ability to breathe, breathing is a thing. All right. But all the work that I do, Sasha, is through my voice, right? So I do my healings, I do my journeyings, I do my tarot podcasts, counseling, etc., is my voice. And I think for the most part, I've lived my life without censoring what I say. I've always been like pushing against the status quo and just speaking my mind. Because as a brown, indigenous, Mexican, fat woman, the planet will want me to just be quiet. And so it felt very symbolic that it was like a cleanse, like you say, it's like a cleanse. And then the floodgates open. And then you can say whatever you want. And it felt very symbolic to me, kind of like, okay, if you're really, it was almost like a rite of passage, from the other side, from the other realms, from the other dimensions, that are you really it? And are you going to show me how you deal with it? So that was amazing. And after that, I've never dreamt about her again. I never felt her presence again. um and I have other stories, from when I was younger, and I couldn't wait to come to your show and like talk about the super funny ones, but because they could be so funny when they want to.
I would love for you to share a funny one as well. But before you do have you had any sort of between world experiences, not awake, not asleep, but somewhere in between since then?
Yes, yes. This is and I was debating if I share this or not, and I think we're so far removed from the beginning of 2020. um it was 4 years ago around this time of the year, right, where we all went inside, and oh, if you have COVID, you were a pariah or whatever. And now it's like such a common place, right? Like, is it a cold or is it COVID? But back then, I had COVID. I'm one of the OG, Sasha. I'm one of the first people who had it. So I
Mm.
had the original COVID in May of 2020. I've never disclosed this publicly before until right now, and there is a reason. I was watching this show, the Handmaiden Tales, right?
The
Han-
Handmaid's Tale.
yeah, and the show itself is scary. We're living it, so it's really scary. Um, so the show itself is scary. I was watching the show before I got sick. Then I got sick. Then I got very sick at one point. My husband and I decided that if we got sick, we were going to stay home. That is a conscious decision that we made. Because going to the hospitals in 2020 was very scary, right? And he and I decided we are going to deal with it. We're going to deal with it at home. And so we both got it. He got very sick on his stomach, and I got very sick on my respiratory, right? I had pneumonia. And there was a couple of days where I was just like sleeping and waking up to go to the bathroom and maybe have a drink of water and go back to sleep. And at one point, I have this in between stage. And I was on the couch. I'm telling you, between my bedroom and the kitchen, there's a little hallway and there's a couch. And I'm on the couch, and I think I was delirious with fever or something, right? Or maybe lack of oxygen, or only the goddess knows what. And on my kitchen threshold, there's not a door, but there is a doorway. And there she was, the main character from The Handmaid's Tale. And there she was, and she was telling me, come on, we have to escape. We have to escape. We have to go. But I could see through her face that it wasn't her. It was a dark entity. It was a black, color black, super black entity, like black smoke. But when she spoke, she transfixed into the character from The Handmaid's Tale, and she was so insistent, kind of like this, transmitting transmitting the desperation of the show. Right? We need to escape. We need to go. I never finished watching the show because you cannot make me watch that show again. Period. Yeah. But the feeling, Sasha, because she was so insistent. We have to go. We have to go now. We have to escape. But it was kind of like when a video is glitching and you kind of see other things behind the person's face. It was like that. And it was just black smoke. And I was like, in my delirium, in my semi conscious state, I was like, oh, hell no. I'm not moving from this couch. I'm not getting up. I'm not going anywhere. And with whatever force I had mentally, I don't think I spoke the words, but I think that in my mind I told her like you need to leave. So I was still kind of like guarding my house, as a witch, kind of like putting those um guards up and like no, you need to leave. And I was in that state of semi consciousness for like 3 days, 4 days. Just sleeping, drinking, going to pee, and coming back to bed. It was scary. And again, I never told anybody before because nobody's business. But it's worth to tell this story because it was very scary. That was very, very scary.
Well, I appreciate the fact though that you explained as far as that the first witch story, about the in-between world space, because I think it's important for people to remember that they're not helpless in a situation like that you can ask the energy or order the energy, because it is your home, and your personal home is your personal private space, and you have the right to lay down boundaries just as you would with a living human. So I appreciate the fact that you shared how you did a ritual, how oftentimes you can just say like get out, um, and that will work, because I think that like we live in the world of tarot and magic, and it can be horrifying and terrifying for us. So I can imagine how that feels for people. So wow, I appreciate that. So did you do any after that? The Handmaiden's Tale like it sounded like that energy was like wearing the like wearing a Halloween costume of that character from the show. Did you do anything um after that, like in your waking life, or did you know you had sent it away in the
You know what happened at that moment, and this is very visceral. This is a very animal reaction, right? Um, the hair standing up like a cat, right? So during that experience, I could feel that I've talked with a lot of people about the COVID times and what COVID was, and take it with a grain of salt, right? A lot of people believe that this was kind of like a thoughtless energy that just came and devoured and left. And I don't want to be offensive to the millions of people who perished through COVID. But I've heard a lot of people describing the virus as black smoke, black, you know, not demonic, not diabolic, just hungry and devouring, right? So at that moment when I'm in between, hallucinating, blah blah, I think that I unconsciously in a survival mode, I threw all of the virus, malignant, whatever energy, push it out of my body, and it got pushed into my hair. Don't ask me how I did it. It was very, like I say, like an animal reaction, like a very survival. With a lizard, when a lizard gets cut by their tail, they cut the tail and they go away so they can survive, right? It felt almost like that, like the all the illnesses needed to go into my hair. And again, Sasha, I love you, and I'm sharing all this that I kept under wraps for 4 years. I've never shared with anybody. So what I did once I recovered my health, thank you, Goddess, that she said like, no, you're staying. Um, the first order of business was going to the hairdresser and I chop about 12 inches of my hair. So if y'all want to go back into my Facebook or Instagram 4 years ago, you'll see when I was like, I just cut my hair because I cut a good foot length of hair. And I'm like, I think that's how it just kind of got cleansed from
Yeah.
inside of me. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing this for the first time with us and for everybody who's listening. I also feel as if things sometimes don't make sense or make sense in the way that, and so again, like I really appreciate that because I think it makes other people not feel so alone when they're in situations like that.
Yeah. Because it was like a cleanse, right? It was like literally like which limb can be sacrificed. It was not going to be my lungs,
Right.
right? So which limb, which part of me can I push all of this illness towards so it can just
Be
be
gone.
be gone. And the thing is, after COVID, my hair just started falling. And I have a whole bunch of hair, Sasha, but I used to have like double this. So a lot of my hair started falling after COVID. And that's when I decided, like, let me just cut the hair. And I
Yeah.
cut it very, very short, kind of like down to my ears, which I haven't done since I was a child. And yeah, and then I started feeling like a lot better. So, I guess just go with your intuition, go with your instinct.
Mhm.
We're animals. We are so adamantly trying to forget that we're animals, but we are animals. And so we feel these things, and we need to pay attention to the things that we feel, and we need to pay attention to what our body is telling us to do to counteract the harm.
I so appreciate you saying this. Something I've been working on a lot lately. I think I had read it in a Deepak Chopra book or something about letting life move through you. That we're not really living life, that life is actually living us. And I love this idea and I've been playing with it. And it's funny because since I've been trying to let life move through me, I've had one experience I just had yesterday, one I had a couple of weeks ago, both kind of life and death situations. And something else took over and I let it move through me. And in the first situation, I averted a horrible accident. And in the second situation, I came to the aid of someone else. And it was not me consciously moving. It was something else, but I let that other thing kind of move through me and to what I assume was a really beautiful, safe thing. So this is important stuff, you know?
Absolutely. To pay attention to your gut and the hair on the back of your head and the goosebumps that you feel on your arms, on your legs, and wherever they present themselves, and to really learn from your intuition and how your intuition talks to you, because my intuition is going to talk to me one way, your intuition is going to talk to you one way. So I cannot teach you or share with the people who are listening how do you work to understand your intuition. You listen, you feel, you stop trying to rationalize, and therein lies the mystery, because it's very personal.
It is so personal and no one else can do it for you. That's why even though I write books, I'm like to my students, throw out your books. You have to figure out how it works for you and you can only do that through trial and error and using tools and just paying attention. Just paying attention is so super helpful. Would you share some funny ghost story? I haven't heard a lot of funny ghost stories
Oh,
thus.
this is hilarious. You're going to love it. So this happened in Mexico. I'm Mexican from Mexico. I was born and raised in Mexico. I'm from Mexico City. And so my school was like 30 minutes on public transportation from my house. And I had to be school by 6:45 because classes started at 7. So it was a very early morning every morning, which is not my nature. And my brother at the time gifted me an old stereo. I mean, we're talking about 35 years ago, right? 35 years ago, that stereo was old. It was a turntable and it had a 8-track cassette thing and then a regular cassette tape uh, player and the radio. You know, one of those big turntables. And so every morning, I will wake up in the morning, probably like 5 o'clock in the morning, wake up, take a shower, do my hair, get dressed, get my book bag, go to school, have cereal or whatever, cup of coffee, different country, different culture. We don't do cereal every morning. And so I will wake up and I will start the radio, and I remember that I used to listen to like Spanish rock from the 80s or English music, disco oldies. Back then, there were oldies, like 60s, 70s disco. So it was either disco or Spanish rock. And then suddenly, my radio stations start changing. Like first I thought, white noise, interference, FM radio, we don't have none of this digital stuff. And I'm like, yeah, well, but then days go by and it keeps happening. So now I'm paying attention. And I can see the knob on the radio moving. So I'm like, hey, leave my radio alone. And I can see the knob moving and the needle moving between stations. And I'm like, okay, that's kind of spooky. And, days go by and then weeks go by and then it starts happening again. And now it happens a little more often. And it's always in the morning when I'm getting ready to go to school. And I've always been very psychic, very intuitive. So I was spooked, but not terrified, right? And so it kept happening. And now it happens more often and more often. And now it's like happening every morning. So I'm like, you're getting really bold. So I'm like, I'm going to outsmart whatever this is. So I grabbed one of my cassette tapes with Spanish rock and I put the cassette tape and I press play. And I'm like, haha, te jodiste. I'm going to swear in Spanish. Um, and, I'm going to listen to my rock. And then the music stopped. What the heck? And I turn around, Sasha. The cassette tape player, which was, 80s button,
Yes.
the pause was paused. It hit the pause button. And for all the children here, they were big buttons that you had to push, and they were hard to push
Mhm.
because it's a tape recording that is playing, and you have to stop that ribbon from going, and you have to press the pause button that moved the player down. So they were heavy to press. The stop would have been easier to press than the pause. So it pauses, and then I got really spooked. I'm like, oh, this one is a strong one. It can pause the stereo. So, I go home, I go to school, and of course I'm all spooked, and, I come back home and we're having lunch. We're my mom, my sister, and myself. And we had just moved to that apartment not too long ago. So on the corner of the apartment, we have another stereo, like a newer stereo that was like in the living room. And there's piles and piles of cassette tapes, right? And for those who don't remember, think about the size of your cell phone, almost, but a little thicker, right? Like a 3x5, sort of. And there's like a bunch of piles of cassette tapes. There's 5 siblings on a household. There's a lot of music, different tastes, etc. So there's a bunch of, but they're all on their side, piled on top of each other. So we're having la hora de la comida, 3 o'clock in Mexico. It's not lunch, it's not dinner, it's in between. Um, so we're eating, and I'm telling my mom and my sister. Now, my mom is also very intuitive, kind of witchy. My sister is the biggest skeptic that ever existed. She don't believe in nothing. She thinks we're woo-woo and we're cuckoo and all of that. So I'm telling them, this has been happening. And then this morning, the cassette tape got paused. And my mom tells me, have you asked this ghost what they want to listen to? And I'm like, no, it's my morning, it's my radio. I'm going to listen to what I want to listen. And my mom, because she's my mom, she's like, well, next time it happens, ask it, what do you want to listen to? And I roll my eyes, and I'm like, okay, you ghost, what do you want to listen to? And a cassette tape flies off the pile, hovers in the space for 2 seconds, and then it falls to the ground. And all my mom and I look at each other like, okay, my sister was transparent. I mean, all the color dropped on my sister. And my sister was like, what just happened? And then of course I'm spooked. I mean, it's like a whole cassette tape hovering in the air for 2 seconds and then fall on the floor. Like, okay, we all saw it, right? Okay. Ugh. I gather all my courage. I get up and I pick up the cassette tape. And of course, it's cumbia music. I mean, I like cumbia, but I was a teenager, I was into rock. So it's cumbia music that we put on when we were at a party, when we're celebrating. It's very like, very lively, very like danceable. It's like, it's party music.
Yeah.
And I tell my mom, look, is this one, Cello y su conjunto was the name of the band. A singer named Cello, this wonderful Mexican singer in Spanish. I don't know if she's Mexican. And then the band, Cello and her band. And I told Mama, it wants to hear Cello y su conjunto. And then my mom says, like, well, play it. So we played the cassette from one end to the other. We were singing all the songs. We were having a good time. It ended one side. We flipped it. We played the other side. We were singing. We were happy. And then when the cassette ended, I told it, like, you're done. You cannot come and mess up with my stereo and with my music in the mornings anymore, okay? Because you're scaring me. And that was that.
So once again, you were proactive. Your whole family was proactive with this ghost.
Yeah.
You're teaching everyone valuable lessons. And you have a night that's, I mean, and to the ghost's credit, you guys had a fun hour or so listening to
Yeah.
party
Yeah.
music.
And I call it my ghost bailador, dancing ghost or party ghost, if you will. Uh, cumbianchero. Cumbianchero is like somebody that likes cumbia and they like to dance to the cumbia beat. And I invite you all to Google cumbia because it's like a really good kind of music to dance and to have fun.
I'll put a link into the shows.
Yeah, yeah. I can actually guide you to the exact music that we listen to it, so people can listen to it. Particularly one song called El Foco that I think is the funniest one on that album. Um, but yeah, like I believe that sometimes these entities are disembodied humans that they just hang around this planet because they want to hang around in this dimension because life is beautiful. And why wouldn't you want to hang around even if you don't have a body anymore? And it is truly my belief, Sasha, that people like you and I that can see things like this, that we walk around with kind of like a light or a marker or something that they can see. Kind of like on the Sims game, right? Like with the little rhomboid light here. And that they come to us because we can hear them. And this guy just wanted some good music, like, hey, I'm here. I know you like music. I like music, but I don't like your music. Can you play some of my music so I can have a good time? And ultimately, my dear friend, we all want to be seen. We
Yeah.
all want to be acknowledged. We all want to be recognized. And I don't think that not having a body changes that.
Oh, I so agree with you. Everything visible, invisible that is incarnated in this world and what is on the other side. I believe everything, including divinity itself and the creative principle, wants to be seen just as much as you and I do. And that's why our attention is our magic wand. And that's why what we see lights up, because it's not just us seeing. It's a two way.
Yeah, it's a relationship. It is
Yeah.
a relationship. And yeah, sometimes it can be scary and sometimes it can be they can startle you and when you're vulnerable, when you're sleeping and all that, but I think it's good to remember that we are the three-dimensional ones.
Yeah.
This is our realm. We have the upper hand. We have a hand. Don't get mad at me. We still have bodies, right? We belong to this incarnation, to this realm, and we rule here.
Hmm.
And on the other side, when there's other dimensions that we don't understand, and they belong to that dimension, that's where they rule. And that's why it's so hard for us to go to them because it's like how um but that dream of me going into the mirror and me being the spectrum, that made me think a lot about how are we perceived when we are the ones going to other dimensions.
Hmm.
Are we the scary ones on the other dimension? It's like it's really a whole lot of food for thought.
I love that. I love
And
that.
then,
I'm curious, just based on your experience, obviously, there's no right or wrong answer. Where do you think you were before you were born, and where do you think we're all going after we pass on?
oh, I love this question. I love this question. Um, this is not my idea. This is something I learned from one of my long, long, long time friends and my first mentor into pagan witchcraft, my dear friend Marty Couch, that used to say, um, our souls or energy or life essence is like silly putty, right? Like Play-Doh. And so creator, la universa, diosa, whatever you want to call her, right? Goddess, whatever you want to call it. Once our bodies are expired, picks up our essence, right? And sticks it on the pile of Play-Doh and keeps amassing that, right? And playing with the dough and kneading. No, it's not amassing, it's kneading. Um, so we literally are one.
Hmm.
I truly believe that that is the how, or that is the theory that I really like. And then when a new body comes into existence, right? As it comes into existence, as it crosses the threshold.
Yes.
I don't believe it's before that we cross the threshold. Being born physically into. Um, I think that at that moment, the creator grabs a bunch of silly putty and sticks it inside of that new body that is now existing, and rinse and repeat. I think, because why do we see so much of ourselves in other people?
Mhm.
Why do we create these bonds with certain friends, with our lovers, with our partners? And it's not the twin flame thing. I personally don't believe, especially lately with what horrible people are doing in the name of twin flames.
Yeah.
If you don't know what I'm talking about, Google it. Um, Not in a twin flame way, but in a way in which we truly are one, as in energy cannot be destroyed, and we are energy.
Yeah.
Ergo, that energy needs to congregate somewhere and then separate to create the next person, right? And then when that person's body's expired, that energy needs to go back to congregate and mixes, right? Because it's like you have a cup of water and then I throw some of this Diet Coke into the water. It's gonna mix, right? But the water is gonna have a little bit of the Diet Coke, and the Diet Coke is gonna have a little bit of the water. So I see you, you see me, but I also see me in you, and you see you in me, right? And I think that's why, because we all come from the goddess, and to her they shall return. Like that's what I think. And I think that we don't have memory of it because some of that memory is kind of, because it gets too mushed and moved around, and
Yeah.
but we certainly conserved some of ancestral memories, DNA information, I think. Because I see it a lot with my indigenous community, that um, as we are rediscovering and reconnecting after all the colonization atrocities, a lot of us feel like memories.
Mhm.
And we were not alive 500 years ago,
Mhm.
but we are rediscovering and reconnecting and kind of like going back to practice like our ancestors did. And some of it's like muscle memory. And I was
Mhm.
like, why does it feel so familiar?
Isn't that interesting? Oh, I love that. Thank you so much for being on today. Did you have any other funny stories you wanted to share before we close out?
Um, Yeah, I guess speaking specifically of entities that could be scary that were human at one point. So the so-called disembodied entities, right? Because we have other entities that we don't know what they are. Um, I don't presume to know what they are, right? But I don't think that every entity that could be perceived as ghosts was human. I think a percentage of them could have been human. So with that said, um, to remember, right? This is our two-dimensional realm. We rule here. And also, traditionally in folk magic in some places of Mexico, Central and South America, they say curse at them, be mean to them, tell them to get the F out of here, and and just remember to remind my Latin, Hispanic, Spanish, whatever they call us nowadays, that not having a body doesn't mean that we lose our dignity,
Mhm.
and that if they are just trying to get our attention, we don't have to be cruel to them. To have a relationship, you have a relationship with the divine, you have a relationship with God and Goddess, you have a relationship with your spouse, with your children, with the person at the cash register. You establish, ideally, dignified relationships.
Yes.
So with these disembodied entities, conserve the dignity. Like, we're not superior to them, we're not inferior to them, we're equal. They just don't have a body, and
Mhm.
that's that. And so, like, establish relationships. If you can coexist with them, tell them the rules of engagement. You cannot come in my dreams, you cannot come to my private quarters, you cannot come when I'm in the bathroom, you cannot come when I'm with my lover, like that kind of thing. um Because if I die and my essence wants to hang out, I wouldn't want to be treated poorly.
Yeah.
I would want to be treated with dignity.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. I think again, you are reiterating the beautiful truth is that everything that we experience is a relationship, and what applies for our quote unquote normal waking world applies for the invisible world. Whether you're petitioning an energy to come to your aid or to work with you, or whether you're asking someone to please, leave my kitchen. This is my safe space, and your energy isn't welcome. But I like that. To do so with dignity and to do so with respect,
Yeah.
right?
And you can remember that you can always tell them, don't scare me. Don't scare me. You want me to understand something. Be clear. Don't scare me. You don't need to scare me. I acknowledge you. I know you're here. So don't scare me. What's up? What you want? Be prepared. If you ask what you want, be prepared. Right? Now, if you don't want to commit to the what you want, gently get out of my house. You're not welcome here.
Wow. I do hope someday when I do pass on that I can come back and at least haunt little girls' sleepover parties when they're like playing with tarot cards and doing light as a feather, stiff as a board. I think that would be so much fun.
We should come together, Sasha. You know,
Seriously, you and I would make quite a team. You and I as
really
ghosts.
nice. Yeah.
Laura, thank you so much for coming on Ghost Stories by the Fire. I adore your energy and I love sharing you and your spirit. Thank you so, so much. And I hope you'll come back again sometime.
Of course. Anytime you invited me, every time you invite me, I will be so honored to be here. Not only I love your energy, but I also admire your work greatly.
Thank you.
Sasha's the real deal. For those who probably still haven't catch on,
Thank you so much for being part of Ghost Stories by the Fire. Do you have a spooky story, near-death experience, or supernatural happening you'd like to share? I'd love to hear it. Submit your story to sashagraham.com with Ghost Stories by the Fire in the subject line. You might just wind up on this podcast. And if you want to support it and keep the ghost stories coming, head on over to sashagraham.com to check out my books and tarot decks, which are available for purchase at your favorite bookseller. The Ghost Stories by the Fire theme song is titled Lovely, from the original motion picture score of The Deeper You Dig, a film about the lengths a mother will go to find her daughter's killer. Thanks again for listening, and until next time, I'm saving you a seat at the fire.